So what are you saying about nicotine pouches?
So whenever you have an inflammatory impetus to the gut, it changes where blood is flowing, essentially. So the gut is supposed to be hypoxic and low oxygen. That's what allows the right bugs to grow there, in the colon in particular. But nicotine, it's not supposed to be consumed orally. So when you swallow it, it's very irritating to the mucosa. It can create gastritis. It can even lead to ulcers. It can lead to ulcerations in the mouth as well, but typically less so. But if you swallow it, it can create inflammatory conditions in the gut that can create dysbiosis, digestive issues, gas, bloating, things like this.
So do not, if you're using the nicotine pouches, kids.
Yeah, kids.
Don't swallow the damn spit. Spit it out. Or if you're doing any of the hardcore shit like the Skoal or Copenhagen or any of that.
I don't know what that is, but
that's like the actual tobacco that they shoved in their mouth. Yeah,
you got to be like the wrestlers in high school.
Tucker Carlson is the biggest advocate for Zins. He says that it improves his erection quality.
Well,
he says it's the best thing that God has ever invented. It's like God's hand massaging his brain. He's a smart guy when it comes to some things. I think he's a really intelligent human being, but I think he is very overzealous on the Zins.
Well,
I think he does like a can a day of Zins.
That's too much. I was using Zins for a very short period of time, and I literally got really depressed.
Really?
It was so bad, and like I was able to like detach and be like, this is not me. Like I've just never taken this again. So that was me. But like I have issues. I think I always had like slight histamine issues, and post-COVID, I had COVID really bad in like 2022. And I had like issues with parasite infection after that and like histamine stuff. But the Zins, because they work on acetylcholine, cholinergics are also related to histamine. And so histamine does a whole bunch of stuff. But
let me tell you something real quick.
Yeah.
The first time I ever learned about these things, I had a guy from Andrew Gallimore. He is a neuroscientist based in Tokyo.
Okay.
Who does... He's basically no, it's a neurobiologist.
All right.
And he said he had this little can of these nicotine pouches with this Japanese writing on it because he was in Tokyo. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, it's nicotine pouches. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, he was from the UK, but he lived in Tokyo. And he was like, it's neuroprotective. It's good for your brain. I'm like, really? Well,
Jack would add a caveat and say you need to get UVA light with your nicotine in order for it to be beneficial, which is true. And actually, Jack makes a really good point on this, especially recently he's been talking about this, that nicotine and other, if you look at the structure of nicotine, it has like rings with like some double bonds. Whenever you see that, it's called like an aromatic ring. Whenever you see that in a structure, think UV light, because that structure can absorb UV light like crazy. All of the aromatic amino acids, tyrosine, phenylalanine, tryptophan, they all absorb UV light. So Jack talks about how actually it makes complete sense. If you think about the type of people who gravitate towards these things, they tend to be UV light deficient.
Yeah.
Also dopamine
slaves.
Right, exactly. So that can actually serve as a delivery mechanism for UV light to get to your brain. But in order for that to happen, you actually have to be in UV light as well.
So if you're doing the nicotine, don't swallow it and make sure you're getting sunlight.
Exactly. Or cold, I guess, in the winter.
Yeah, I have so many friends who don't spend any time outside and they're just addicted to everything.
Exactly.
Video games, sports betting, nicotine.
Well, when you're not addicted to the sun like nature intended, you're going to be addicted to other things because you're going to need the hit somewhere.
Right.
But when you're getting it from the sun, it's like cruising like this. When you're getting it from other things, it's like this. It's like up and down and up and down. It's a roller coaster. All
right. We were on like a very, very solid path, scientific path that you were leading me down. And I think I lost track. What were we talking about? What were we talking about before we started talking about nicotine?
Well, we were talking about melanin. And, like,
you were saying nicotine is bad for the gut. Like don't swallow it. If you want nicotine, smoke it or just don't spit it.
Yep. Smoke. And I mean, obviously smoking, limit that if you're going to do it too much. Like then I would probably use something absorbing and like Bucoli or whatever. I actually like Troscriptions. They're methylene blue and nicotine troches. They're great.
What is it? Methylene blue and nicotine what?
Troches. They're buccal. They're like these little.
What are they called?
Troscriptions.
Troscriptions.
Yeah, they're great. They also make just plain methylene blue ones.
Right now.
I know, right? And you basically tuck it between your cheek and your gum line, and it absorbs there. It will stain your mouth blue, just warning, because the methylene blue is like a dye. There you go.
Oh, shit.
These are great, especially for long COVID, because both the nicotine, so nicotine works on the ACE2 receptors as well.
So what is the effect you get from this? You get any sort of...
So this is
can I catch a buzz from this?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, this also has CBD in it. So you feel good. It's also good for you. I obviously wouldn't abuse it because methylene blue, Jack talks about it decently.
Yeah, he says he gives people IVs of methylene blue when he does brain surgery on them.
Right. So there's certain situations, if you have mitochondrial dysfunction, let's say from long COVID or the jabs, you may want to use something like nicotine with methylene blue.
Is this, you have to get a prescription for this?
No, you can buy it online.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. Highly recommend. I love it. They have the Just Blue trochees as well.
So this is potentially a good alternative. It's gum? Or you just like sit it between your...
You just sit it between your gum line and your cheek.
Okay.
Methylene blue was actually very closely related to hydroxychloroquine. So like they're...
Yeah, that's what Jack was saying.
Close. Yeah.
What is like a practical use of methylene blue?
So
for every day, not just for brain surgery.
Yeah, I mean, he would defer because he doesn't like to get into trouble with this because it's kind of a gray area online with like censorship around methylene blue.
Is there censorship really? Well, it's fish tank cleaner too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's also used in like research. My friend at Princeton uses it in his like zebrafish research to like stain embryos or whatever. But essentially what it can do is it does quite a few things. Jack would say that it works at the quantum biological level to help facilitate the movement of electrons, like quantum tunneling essentially. But it can help to make the electron transport chain a bit more coupled. So it helps with energy and water production in the mitochondria. So if you're in a condition where your mitochondrial function isn't very good, and maybe, like I said, long COVID, post-jab, or other situations where maybe your mitochondrial function is hindered, like, I don't know, some chronic disease states, then you may benefit from using it. Obviously, it's not medical advice, but it's very low toxicity. Obviously, again, you wouldn't want to abuse it, though, because it can have some drawbacks. It also works as an SSRI and SNRI, so if you're on certain psychiatric drugs, you can't use it. Like, what are they called? Like
depression drugs, SSRIs?
Yeah. So it can really help.
Prozac, is that like one of them?
It's a boost. Yeah, Prozac. There's another group of MAO inhibitors. Those drugs, you can't combine those with methylene blue.
Oh.
They're contraindicated. But for people who aren't on those, they can use it for mental health and physical health as
How many of those prescriptions would be safe to use in one day?
So each little square, it breaks into 4 pieces.
Okay.
I would typically use like 1 or 2 little squares at a time, like daily, maybe 3 days a week or something like this. Every other day, something like that. Oh, okay. Or you could do 3 days on, 4 days off. I wouldn't use it every day, depending on what you've got going on. If it's just for like a boost.
I think Huberman said that one of the guys in his lab a couple years ago or whatever was constantly chewing nicotine gum, and he was one who like he won a Nobel Prize.
Oh my God. Yeah, in the short term, and maybe you'll have colon cancer in 20 years.
Right? Yeah. If you're swallowing it, right?
Yeah. Most people do. Most people don't know.
Right.
I know people who destroyed their gums with those pouches. Like they literally
with the pouches?
Yeah, with the Zyn pouches in particular. Like my one friend in particular literally has to get reconstructive gum surgery because she destroyed her gums.
Oh, it's a girl that's doing it. Not many chicks use Zyn pouches.
A lot of the high-performing ones do.
They do, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's nuts. So, but that you wouldn't be able to mitigate that by spitting, though. It's just because it's sitting there. It's
well, she was really crushing them.
Oh, she was crushing them.
She was crushing them.
How many?
Like all the time. There was always one in her mouth.
Always.
Yeah. So like you want to make sure you're rotating where you're putting it, and then not all day, because it is very irritating to the mucosal, which is also in the mouth.
Right.
So